Interesting.
You don't want me to talk because you're afraid. Because you're afraid that I'm going to wreck your narrative. That's cowardly, Pierce.
I think what you're afraid of, you're afraid of this uprising this time being the one that actually topples the regime that you prop up.
Alright, quick context. This is Piers Morgan speaking to Mohammed Marandi, a professor and prominent defender of the Iranian regime during nationwide protests in Iran. At the time, the regime had shut down the internet, blocked journalists, and denied reports of mass killings. What you're about to see isn't a shouting match, it's a pattern. Let's play it.
Professor,
just one moment.
The best way to clear this up is to allow journalists to do their job freely in Iran, turn the internet back on, let everybody work out for themselves what is really happening. But when a regime shuts off the internet, what it's really doing is not trying to stop communication between protesters, it's trying to stop the truth about what it is doing in response being communicated to the world. And what it's doing is murdering thousands of Iranians who are protesting. They've admitted killing 2,000. Reports are that it may be as many as 12,000 or more. We're seeing footage here of body bags everywhere. And that is why the regime is turning off the internet. It's not out of some great altruistic, well, we just, don't want these people communicating. It's so that we can kill them and the rest of the world can't see what we're doing.
No, Pierce, that is an utterly dishonest take. The numbers are fabricated. The government has not given any numbers. And as I said,
2,000.
I'm talking, Pierce. You don't want me to talk.
Well, you said you're just wrong.
You are just like those journalists who are talking about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and the incubators.
Pause it here. This is the moment everything becomes clear. He says the casualty numbers are fabricated. He says the media is lying. He compares it to Iraq, to WMDs, classic deflection. But then watch what happens when the question changes. He knows how many security officers were killed. He can give you that number without hesitation. But when Piers asks a very simple question, how many protesters have been killed, suddenly there's nothing. No estimate, no range, no concern. That asymmetry isn't accidental. Authoritarian regimes always count their own dead. They almost never count the people they kill. And that's why the internet gets shut off. Not to stop protesters talking to each other, but to stop evidence reaching the outside world. If nothing brutal were happening, there'd be no blackout, no censorship, no panic about journalists doing their jobs. This isn't about disputed numbers, it's about who gets counted and who doesn't. And once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere.
And
I led the campaign against that, as you may remember.
Well, you've flipped.
I haven't flipped to anything. I try and deal in facts.
No, Pierce. We had rioters who burned people alive, who cut people's heads off, and it's the evidence.
And what has your regime done to the protesters?
The protesters, Pierce, the millions of people that came to the streets yesterday, why did they come to the streets? It's because your narrative is nonsense.
Well, how many protesters have been killed?
Your narrative.
How many protesters have been killed?
I don't know the numbers.
You don't
know. I do know that roughly 100 officers of the law have been murdered.
So you know how many people you believe have been killed on the regime side, but you have no idea how many people the regime's killed. Interesting.
You don't want me to talk because you're afraid. Because you're afraid that I'm going to wreck your narrative. That's cowardly, Pierce.
I think what you're afraid of, you're afraid of this uprising this time being the one that actually topples the regime that you prop up.
That's why this exchange matters. Not because of who won the argument, but because it shows you how power behaves when it's afraid of being seen.